beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib, it's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
Need to get your goods to St. Kitts and Nevis? Look no further. TDC Shipping has you covered with reliable cargo solutions by land, air, and sea. Whether it's a package from across the world or a large shipment of goods, TDC Shipping makes it easy, affordable, and stress-free. And with our airbox service, ordering from your favorite online stores just got even easier. Ship straight to your mailbox and let TDC Shipping handle the rest. Fast, secure, and even to your door. Visit us today at the C.A. Paul Southwell Industrial Park or Penny's Industrial Site, or call 465-2511 in St. Kitts or 469-5430 in Nevis. TDC Shipping, where reliable service meets unbeatable convenience. TDC, together we succeed.
Save your quarters and save your dollars. Inflation protects.
Parents and guardians, it's time to secure your child's success. Enroll them in Aspire and unlock amazing benefits. $500 in cash savings, $500 in investment shares, and life-changing financial education to teach budgeting, saving, and investing. Don't wait. Sign up your child or ward for Aspire today and give them the tools to achieve greatness. Visit aspire.gov.kn for more information.
Welcome to Island Tea with your faves. Keep it locked in with us for your daily dose of hot tea only on Win Media 98.9.
Good morning, and how are we doing this morning? Welcome to today's edition of Island Tea. It is the 27th of May, 2025. It's a Tuesday, so choose to be kind, choose to smile, choose to help someone, just choose to do something good overall. Just to remind you, we're being simulcast on TVC Channel 40, Facebook, as well as YouTube. To remind you of also on the radio, for those of you who can get us, we're at 98.9. For those of you wishing to join in on the conversation or have a pressing issue that you want to share, our numbers that we can be reached at are in the UK, 0333-440065, in the USA, 1-718-285-6984 or 1-305-921-4619. Our local number, 466-0989. And on today's program at 8:30 a.m., we have Weekly Dose with Dr. Natalie Osborne, and today's topic will be diarrhea. Quint, good morning. How are you doing today?
Good day. I'm fine. And you?
Trying my best to be better than yesterday.
Yeah.
And as we anticipate Weekly Dose, I saw an article on Loop that says 5 health symptoms you should never ignore. And it says our bodies are amazing at sending signals when something isn't quite right. While it's easy to brush off certain aches and pains or wait a few days to see if it goes away, some symptoms should never be ignored. Early detection can make all the difference, sometimes even saving your life. Here are 5 symptoms that warrant serious attention and a visit to your doctor as soon as possible. The first, chest pain or pressure. This is one of the most commonly ignored symptoms and one of the most dangerous. Whether it feels like tightness, pressure, or pain in your chest, this could be a sign of a heart attack, especially if it radiates to your arm, jaw, or back. Don't wait it out. If you feel short of breath, dizzy, or start sweating, along with pain, seek emergency care immediately. Time is critical when it comes to heart-related issues. The second one that you should not ignore, sudden or severe headaches. We all get headaches now and then, but a sudden intense headache, often described as the worst headache of your life, could signal something serious like a brain aneurysm, stroke, or bleeding in the brain. Also, concerning headaches that come with vision changes, confusion, or weakness on one side of the body. If a headache feels different from your usual or hits you like a bolt of lightning, don't try to tough it out. go to the ER. Unexplained weight loss. Losing weight without trying might sound like a dream come true, but it can be a red flag. If you've lost more than 10% of your body weight in a short time without changing your diet or exercise habits, your body may be fighting a serious illness. Possible causes include thyroid disorders, diabetes, digestive disorders, or even cancer. The key is not to celebrate until you rule out underlying problems. Persistent fatigue. We all get tired, but if you're constantly exhausted, even after a good night's sleep, something deeper could be going on. Chronic fatigue can be a symptom of anemia, thyroid issues, sleep disorders, infections, or mental health conditions like depression. If rest doesn't help and your tiredness affects your daily life, it's time to speak with a healthcare provider. Changes in bowel or bladder habits, and as I mentioned, we are going to speak about diarrhea this morning, and that too is changes in your bowels. So sudden changes like prolonged constipation, blood in your stool, usually dark urine, or difficulty urinating could signal a problem with your digestive or urinary tract. These symptoms can point to infections, kidney issues, or even colorectal or bladder cancer. Early diagnosis improves the outcome, so don't be shy about bringing it up with your doctor. It's easy to dismiss symptoms when life gets busy or when you don't want to seem dramatic, but your body knows when something is off. Pay attention to what it's telling you. If something doesn't feel right, trust your instincts and get it checked. You're not overreacting, you're being proactive. So don't wait until it's too late. Get to your doctors, share your symptoms. And gentlemen, I know I'm not picking on you, but I know going to the doctor is not your favorite thing to do. But remember, you have people that are depending on you. You have a life that you have to lead. So please go visit the doctor. Quint?
Huh?
Quint says, I know that I was just admonishing the gentleman to go visit the doctor.
Yeah, well, I haven't visited a doctor since I was a child.
Wow. So you've just been doing your own thing?
Yeah.
Okay. Nice. Oh, boy. So what's on your mind? What have you seen in the news that's pressing?
Well, I saw Trump
Oh, boy.
making a whole bigger hullabaloo about how Putin is killing people. He's killing people, and I will not stand this. It's absolutely horrible. And I'm thinking to myself, but the very same thing is happening over there in Palestine, and you don't seem to give a hoot. So
Well, you see, remember, he needs it to be cleared so he can make his oasis.
yeah,
Yeah.
the double standard of the man.
Yeah. I saw a journalist from Australia. He went to the Cannes Film Festival. I'm being tongue-tied right now. And he had on a shirt with almost all the victims that have lost their lives since the war started. And he wore it on that nice linen shirt, so he opened the shirt once he got on the red carpet to reveal what it was. The names are pretty small, but they tried to zoom in so you could see as much as you could. And then if you look to the back, you can see through his olive green linen shirt, he has what he's about.
Yeah.
And that was touching when I saw it yesterday. I was like, wow, everybody's fighting for Palestine. It's good to see that people are not quiet and allowing it to go unbothered. But
It seems to me that the majority of the people around the world who are not associated with some kind of politics or, some group or something, it seems to me like the most people around the world are abhorred at what is happening in Palestine. They don't like it at all.
But I think I remember this guy, Julian Assange. He says T-shirt tribute to Gaza victims at Cannes Film Festival. Yeah, but the names are pretty small. But that's all the victims as far. You have a caller?
No.
Okay.
We had one, but the names are going to be small.
Yeah,
I
tiny.
doubt if he can hold all of those names,
Yeah.
you know. Thousands, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hello,
Yeah.
caller.
Good morning to
Morning.
everybody.
Yeah, good day.
Greetings once more in Jesus' name, the only Savior of sinners from their sins and from hell. Now, first of all, you all mentioned a bit of health issue. And I would like to say, when I've heard doctors over the radio and that sort of stuff, they don't talk much about, hardly ever, if ever at all, about snoring and sleep apnea. Now, Katenza mentioned sleep disorders, but I'm going to get a bit more specific. Sleep apnea with snoring and that sort of stuff. That can be very dangerous and help and has a strong connection with causing things like hypertension, diabetes, and that sort of stuff. I realize a lot of doctors don't really mention snoring and sleep apnea, which causes these things. But that's number one. Number two, yesterday on the radio when I said that I think Ibrahim Torre have good motives, and I think he's an honest man, and I think he wants the best for his people. But his methods and ways of going about in achieving that to empower his people are wrong. When I mentioned that yesterday.
How are they wrong?
Why?
How are they wrong?
Yes. One, well, they are wrong because they are contrary to the Bible. That's why they are wrong. And I'm going to show you how they are counterproductive since they are contrary to the Bible. One, when government, the more a government run a country, control a country, provide this and provide that, you do not achieve in the long run empowerment of the people. In the long run, you actually impoverish your country with national debt, corruption, and all that sort of stuff. Because the more responsibilities a government takes on, is the more you bring out the corruption in man. That is why the saying goes by Lord Acton, power corrupts and absolute power corrupt absolutely. And what he meant to say is that the more power a government has, is the more you're going to be corrupted. And I would add to that the reason why, I would say you're not really corrupted, but the corruption in you that we inherited from Adam, in our corrupt, sinful nature, comes out more and more.
But
So
when
that
you
is why you...
But when
Go
you
ahead.
have a leader, aren't they supposed to provide things for you? We want to
No.
become a sustainable island state. So if our prime minister is able to do
No.
what he is doing now, would that become a problem or?
It is a problem because the more the government runs and rules and control a country, the more you impose. How? Because, like I said, one, well, above all else, it goes against the Bible, and it displays itself, it demonstrates itself by providing, by giving that country a growing, problematic national debt. Not only that, government is not affected by market forces. Government is always plagued by corruption, misuse, abuse, waste, inefficiency, and all those sorts of stuff. So the more a government gets involved and intervenes in the economy and control and runs the economy, is the worse those economies always come, because man is born with an evil, wicked nature. That is why God placed limits on government as to what they to do and ought not to do. Every country that I know of that empowers the people, those countries the government have had to step back and decrease taxes and those sort of stuff, free up the country so that the private sector is the one who plays the major role in empowering the people And that is the only how, in the long run, countries are able to empower their people. But when government do it, government not only they run up the national debt, but they also have to, in the end, sooner or later, raise taxes and government fees to get back the money that they are spending to provide, to control the country, to run the country. They all have to end up sooner or later increasing taxes. And the more you increase taxes and government fees, is the more you cause poverty in your country in the end. Because businesses, individuals, everyone suffers the more government increase taxes. And that is why the worst countries in any kind of rating, be it the Human Development Index, economic freedom, that sort of stuff, the worst countries are the countries where the government playing a greater role in ruling and controlling and running their countries rather than the private sector. So yes, Ibrahim Toure, I give him the best of motives. I give him the benefit of the doubt. He seemed to me to be an honest man, that he wants the best for his country, but the way he's going about it is counterproductive. And do not get me wrong. In the short run, when government are running and controlling the countries and moving and doing such, instead of the private sector, in the short run, you do have some improvement. In the short run, there are people who are helped in the short run. But in the long run, the country always suffers when that is always the case. So that is why I said what I said. We even had it here in St. Kitts when the government had took away personal income tax and was not playing so much a role. It was still playing a big role, but compared to the government role in the economy, it was smaller. And the country boomed because the private sector benefited a lot from the abolishing of the personal income tax. But later on, instead the government cut its spending and expenses, it increased it, and later on the same PAM government had to end up increasing taxes and that sort of stuff, which was very negative on the economy. But the few years before they came out, I realized they started to cut taxes again, which was beneficial to the economy. But the Douglas government came in, and instead they cut government, just like the PAM government, instead they cut government expenses, they continue to increase them, government expenses. And in the end, the Douglas government had to end up increasing taxes and government fees and that sort of stuff, which end up again bringing down the economy. So government controlling countries, government running countries, the more they do so at the expense of the private sector, it always works out for the worst of the country. And that is why I said what I said. Okay, I would like to speak on other things later, so later on. That is this for now. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, let's take a bit of a commercial break, and we'll be back.
We're different. We're 98.9. 98.9. Win FM.
Building supplies, electrical supplies, furniture, appliances, carpets and tiles. It's the company where you can get it all. All at TDC, home and building depot. From lawn and garden, the TVs and stereos. All at TDC, home and building depot. Come on down, get what you're looking for. It's all at TDC, home and building depot.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib. It's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
Welcome to Island Tea with your faves. Keep it locked in with us for your daily dose of hot tea only on Win Media 98.9.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib, it's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
If you need insurance, our service is the best. Home motor insurance can give you more for less. Property insurance can save you a lot of stress. At TDC Insurance Company Limited, we care about your investment. Guarantee you peace of mind. The best team in the business. Guarantee you peace of mind. No other company will guarantee you peace of mind. Together we'll succeed and guarantee you peace of mind. TDC Insurance Company Limited, where you get more coverage for less.
Do you want to know what's happening in sport? Tune in to On the Ball, a weekly tour show which is on WinFM 98.9 every Tuesday from 7 to 9 p.m. with me, your host, Troy Biff Mills. We will keep you on the ball with our variety of guests and, of course, your calls, discussing the facts and the stats and sharing your opinions. Get on the ball and stay on the ball by tuning into On the Ball with Troy Biff Mills on WinFM 98.9 every Tuesday night from 7 to 9 p.m. and also on Facebook and YouTube. Be on the ball.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib, it's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
Found the sound 98.9. Win FM.
Welcome to Island Tea with your faves. Keep it locked in with us for your daily dose of hot tea only on Win Media 98.9.
And we are back on Island Tea, and as promised, in the studio with us, we have the lovely Dr. Natalie Osborne. And as I told you earlier in the program, our topic for today is not only diarrhea, but we're going to find out the causes of diarrhea. Good morning, Doc. Welcome back. How are you doing today?
Good morning. I'm doing pretty good. I'm happy to be here. Another morning, another day.
And the days are fleeting fast. Look at this. We're almost out of May.
Yes, yes. So it's always good to be here with our audience. So I was inspired this week. Usually I look for some inspiration as to what topic, because sometimes you're rocking your brain. What do you want to say to the people?
Yeah.
How can you best inform them? What topics would be of benefit, to the general population that most people can benefit and learn something from. And I really hope that our talks are getting through and that persons have been benefiting, so that we can be even a little bit more aware of our health or overall health. Yeah. So I was inspired this week by a patient, a young gentleman, 20-year-old, who came and who was having some diarrhea. And we're talking about causes of diarrhea and diarrhea, but there's sometimes you don't even know what causes the diarrhea.
Exactly, you just go
But the
off.
good thing about it, most diarrhea are mild and resolve spontaneously on them by themselves.
Yeah.
So that's the whole idea. So, but we're going to discuss some interesting things today.
Okay, so let's start off. What is diarrhea?
So we know that diarrhea is defined as a passing loose, watery stools. So you want to have, you're talking about 3 or more loose or watery stool in one day. And there are different ways of classifying diarrheas, and you want to make sure, though, it is common in both children and adults, and it usually resolves on its own. But there are different ways in which we're going to discuss how we classify. So you can have other associated symptoms with this diarrhea as well, which we're going to talk about. So usually you're going to know that you have diarrhea because it's more frequently and the stools are looser and not formed. Correctly, your stool, if done correctly, your poo should be in the form almost like an S. Because that is the shape of the one of the latter part of the colon, which is called a sigmoid colon. All right? And it should be formed, it should come out solid, it should come out whole. Okay? And if you're having diarrhea, that stool is going to be either very watery, could also be explosive, and you're having the urge to go several times. So we're looking at 3 or more times, all right?
I was about to laugh at explosive, but then I remember I can't. What are the types of diarrhea by duration?
Yes, so the diarrhea can be classified in many different ways. But when we're talking about the period of time with your diarrhea, you're talking about things, your timeline. So diarrhea can be acute. Some people talk about diarrhea being persistent, diarrhea being chronic. So when you're talking about acute, so we're talking about diarrhea that happens in the first 1 or 2 days. Typically, it must have a start and an end point, but the diarrhea that's acute does not pass more than 2 weeks or 14 days. Then after that, that you get a period of persistent diarrhea. That's between, the timeline going to be between 14 days and to a month. And after a month, a diarrhea is considered chronic. And of course, if a diarrhea, that's going to be important to understand, because if your diarrhea becomes chronic, it is much more of concern than a diarrhea or loose stools for 1 or 2 days, because you may have eaten something that upset your stomach, things like that, as we look at the causes. But the longer the diarrhea or the watery stools go on, are major concerns, because you're thinking about the complications that come along with that, and the loss of electrolytes, becoming dehydrated. So the longer this diarrhea persists is a major concern. There are other ways of looking at the classification depending on what are the causes. Sometimes there are different ways of classifying, like asthmatic. You could have persons who have this kind of diarrhea where it is secretory or fatty, where it's like the stool is floating. Sometimes the type of diarrhea and how it is can give you indication of what the underlying cause may be with this diarrhea too. All right, some of it can be considered inflammatory or infectious diarrhea. You're thinking about the different causes, like you've heard of the inflammatory bowel disease, ulcerative colitis, Crohn's disease. They give you a diarrhea as well too. You talk about bloody diarrhea or dysentery. That's another way of classifying diarrhea based on the characteristic or the consistency of the stool. But what we focus on was the timeline, which would be of more importance to our patient on a day-to-day, because you want to make sure that you do not have this prolonged diarrhea that leads into the complications.
Okay. Now that you mentioned that, I never knew the floating ones were the oily ones. So what causes diarrhea?
So most of the main cause of diarrhea is going to be associated with something viral. Remember some weeks ago, I think we spoke about stomach flu. You've heard us speak about gastroenteritis. Yes, so it's usually something virus. Some of the more common viruses, we've got things like the notavirus that's seen more in adults, and the rotavirus seen in children. So it's usually some kind of stomach bug, you have a stomach flu, and that passes within 2 to 3 days, all right? Then you've got things like infection. Well, infectious can be either virus, it can be bacterial, some kind of bacteria that got into a food that you eat. You've heard about things like salmonella, and your food got contaminated, and you have these diarrhea. You've got parasites that can be infectious. Yes, persons who have parasites can have diarrhea. You've got another cause. It happens very common in our communities. Food poisoning is the same. Any harmful toxins or pathogen that is in the food. If the food is undercooked, if the food was left out after it was prepared and not stored adequately, you know you can have these food contamination, and once that gets in your gut, the toxins are released, and that toxin create this watery diarrhea. It's actually a way of getting rid and eliminating this toxin from the GI tract. So that is why it's important sometimes to let this watery stool or this diarrhea to run its course, because oftentimes it's a way of our body of releasing or getting rid of toxins. You've heard of things about diarrhea being caused by medication. There's some medication persons often take that leads to diarrhea. One of the most common that we see every day is antibiotics. Persons who take antibiotics, they realize that their stool become loose, so that's an important cause. There's certain things when they have antacid in them, okay? So a lot of the antacids, they can give you watery or diarrhea. If you use too much laxative, because some persons will say, Doc, I'm having some constipation, difficulty going off. They start using laxative, but they become so dependent on them, and so they overuse the laxative, and then it becomes diarrhea. Have you heard of things like a traveler's diarrhea? Persons who would have traveled to a new or different environment, especially if you're going to a place where there's poor hygiene or sanitation, okay? And it exposes you to bacteria. So that's going to be important to think about. You want to think about different conditions. We talk about celiac disease, persons who have trouble breaking down gluten. You've heard of that. People have intolerance to gluten. You have other foods that can upset your digestive system. Persons who are lactose intolerant. And certain those sugars in the lactose is a form of sugar, and when it breaks down, your body cannot handle it, and the persons develop with diarrhea. Persons who have different infectious disease, we talk about inflammatory bowel disease, ulcerative colitis, Crohn's disease. Sometimes you may have had a surgical procedure. You can have a post-surgery diarrhea after you've had some kind of surgery to your bowels, even if you resect a segment or portion of your bowel, because now your body is working with a less, because imagine if you resect half of the colon because the person had a tumor inside of the colon. Now the function of the colon is to absorb the fluids, okay, and the electrolytes that weren't absorbed in the small bowels, and then if you have less segment of the bowels, now it's going to be much more difficult until the body adjusts to work with a smaller portion. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So persons after surgery, having major surgery on the colon, would tell us, oh, we're having diarrhea. And so that could be if they're having antibiotics during their stay in the hospital, or because they're working now with less portion of the colon, which is responsible for absorb the water. So there are many reasons, but we want to keep in mind the most common ones are usually some kind of virus or bug, infectious bacteria, parasites. It could be food toxins. Those are the ones that lead mostly, and that is why it's important to understand.
Okay, so you said some of us get diarrhea and it goes away in a little time, but then what are some of the associated symptoms of diarrhea? Because sometimes we don't get these, but we have diarrhea.
Yes, persons would come and say they have loose stools, they're having diarrhea, doc, they're going 3 times a day, etc., or more. They could be associated with nausea and vomit. So you want to keep in mind your associated complaints, because that could tell you what is the cause and whether it's something that's going to be mild or severe. Because you want to, most persons are not going to see their physician or see a health care provider for a mild case of diarrhea. That resolves. But once you start having these added symptoms, nausea, vomits, abdominal pain that's located in one's particular area, especially if you're thinking in the right lower quadrant where we have the appendix, because appendix can be associated with diarrhea, especially if the appendix is markedly inflamed, because it irritates the bowel and causes diarrhea. So if the appendix perforates as well too, you can have infection or sepsis, and then that would lead to a lot of diarrhea. You can have bloating. Of course, your tummy going to feel puffy and bloated and uncomfortable. You're going to have things like you're going to feel dehydrated, of course, because one of the largest, you're losing lots of liquids, all right, and you don't want to become dehydrated. And you want to make sure that you're observing these stools to ensure that there is no blood at all in this stool.
Okay. Okay, so what is the most common complication of diarrhea?
So the most common and most feared, and that leads us to the most complication, is going to be the dehydration. You're losing large quantity of fluids, of water, electrolytes that your body needs. The large colon, it's responsible mainly to reabsorb the water. That water is needed to go back in your circulatory system, to get in your blood, to make up that volume. So if you start having lots of watery stools, you're losing that volume, you become dehydrated. And what is associated with this dehydration? You're going to observe that your urine is dark, you're urinating less, okay, because your urine is much more concentrated. Your body is trying to hold on to as much water by releasing less via your urine, all right? You're going to see that you have a rapid heartbeat, because what happened? Your heart, your circulatory system has less volume to circulate. So it has to be pumping faster to keep the smaller volume circulated. Does that make sense? So when you take somebody's pulse, they have a palpitation, we call it palpitation, or the heart is racing. The person can have dry skin. They can realize their lips are dry and cracked. They can have headaches. If it's a baby, you're going to realize that the diapers are not soiled enough. If it's a newborn baby, you have that little hole we call the fontanelle at the top of his head that's going to be sunken in. The baby going to be crying and you don't have much tears. You would go throughout the day and you realize that you haven't had to change the diapers because they're not soiled or wet from the urine. The person, if it continues, it can lead to being cranky or confused, and that is where you're getting into a late stage. So that's why we talk about diarrhea, because if your diarrhea becomes very aggressive, very persistent, then you become dehydrated. One of the first things when you go to any emergency room, they're going to tell you to make sure get your fluids in. So as you lose fluids, you're replacing them.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about the prolonged diarrhea. What are some of the complications of that?
So once we start losing our electrolytes and our volume through the diarrhea, losing water, you're going to compromise your system and you could go into multi-organ failure. What does that mean? Your kidneys start failing because there is not enough blood going to your kidneys. All right? Think about that. The volume of blood, because there's not enough. Most of the blood, remember, it's made up of cells and something called plasma. Most of plasma is water. All right, so that is important. So this dehydration can lead to kidney failure. It can lead to heart attack. It can lead to a stroke. You've heard about persons, if you're wandering around in the wilderness for days and you're not getting any fluids, you become dehydrated, and that dehydration can lead to a stroke. That's how persons die, kidney failure, heart attack, and things like that, if it is not addressed adequately.
You mentioned it being a young man earlier, and I'm glad that he showed up, because when I read an article earlier, I was saying, I know the gentlemen do not like to go to the doctor. So, Doc, when to see a doctor for diarrhea?
So you want to see a doctor for diarrhea, the recommendation, if you've had this watery stool for more than 2 days, they're saying if it's not slowing down. So by the end of the third day, definitely you're saying, because you're going to have to be looking for the pattern. Right? You can start with the diarrhea, but you want to see it go down in frequency, like how often. That's one of the things you want to make sure. So the first day you had 6. If you the next day you have 2 or 3, you realize it has decreased in frequency, and you also want to see it decrease in quantity. But if you're seeing at the end of the third day that this thing continues, you want to get a healthcare provider to take a look at you, to evaluate, to ensure that there is nothing much more serious, and maybe it's just a mild case of food poisoning, or maybe it was just a stomach bug. But if it turns out to be something much more, you want to look into that. So if the diarrhea can persist for more than 2 to 3 days, I want to say 3 days because sometimes you want to give it some time. But if you're saying that you're having 15 loose stools every day and it's large in quantity, that is so excessive. So you want to keep that in mind also. If there's associated fevers, you're having a high temperature, you're thinking something more is going on, you want to see a physician. You want to make sure you see someone if you start having vomiting, you're feeling nauseous, you have tummy pain, especially if it's localized to your right lower quadrant or any particular area where the pain is persistent there, you want to see someone. If there's any blood in your stool, that is not going to be normal. There are lots of these inflammatory bowel conditions like Crohn's, ulcerative colitis, bacterial infection that you're going to need to see your physician because they come with bloody diarrhea. So you want to do that. And so if the pain is much more severe than normal, it's not just a mild crampy pain that it's out of proportion, you want to make sure see someone. So keep in mind, if it prolongs more than 2 to 3 days, the volume of the stool are becoming much more prominent, larger, and they're not decreasing. You want to make sure that there's no blood in it, you don't have any associated abdominal pain that is specific, fever, and things like that. You want to keep that in mind.
How is the cause of diarrhea diagnosed?
So one of the first things you're going to do is sit down and have a conversation with your healthcare provider. You know, you want to talk about when did it start, okay? What had you eaten prior to? If there is anybody else having similar symptom in your household or so, something new that you would have introduced in your diet. Because things that you're not accustomed to eat. You want to keep those in mind because those are some of the questions. If you're taking a medication, if you started taking some antibiotics, if you're taking any kind of laxative, if you're taking any other medication that you weren't accustomed to taking, or you introduce a new food, okay? If you've been, then you want to make sure then you examine the individual because one of the biggest things you're looking for signs of dehydration. Then you could go on to do any other studies. You could take stool samples. Why? Because we said if we're looking for things like parasites or bacteria, you could take a stool sample, send it to the laboratory, and see if you find a specific bacteria or parasite there. You want to do things like a colonoscopy. If this diarrhea, it continues. Why? Because we've got the inflammatory bowel diseases, Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis, and colon cancer can be associated with diarrhea. So you can then find out that this individual has a tumor inside of the colon. You may want to do things like other imaging studies that can help. Abdominal ultrasound, if somebody, if you have sometimes things that affect the stomach, you can do an upper endoscopy to make sure that there's not an infectious process in the stomach that causing the person to have diarrhea. And so you want to make sure that you do some of these tests, check on them, and evaluate and eliminate some of the causes for this diarrhea, especially if you're talking about diarrhea that's now persistent or chronic.
I see a hydrogen breath test. I never knew of this one. And fasting.
Yes, it's like persons who have lactose intolerance, okay? Yeah. So you want to check the bacteria, the different bacteria you're looking for in the gut. So that test would be positive if you're having lactose intolerance.
And with the fasting test, I need water if I'm having diarrhea, or I need some Gatorade or something to rehydrate me. How does that work?
So if you have trouble digesting specific food, that's what we're talking about. And some of these, like food allergies, they're talking about food allergies. Sometimes it's a matter of eliminating all foods and start reintroducing certain foods bit by bit to see what is the food that is causing this particular problem. Because many times people know that they have an allergy to a certain food or lactose intolerant, but they still want the ice cream, they still want to push through it.
Yeah, boy. I know that goes. So how to stop diarrhea?
So in mild cases of diarrhea, in terms of stopping diarrhea, it auto-limits itself. So we're talking about you have a mild case of a stomach bug, you're going to have the watery stool for a day or two, and then it stops. Remember we said also it's your body way of getting rid of certain toxins that are inside there. So that can be of help. There's certain medication you can use. You've heard of the famous Pepto-Bismol. These are medications yes. And you want to have, sometimes you can use antibiotics because they're antibiotics for specific bacteria. or medication specific for parasites, antiparasitic medication, probiotics they talk about. So you want to use certain things like that to help and it's going to depend on what your underlying cause of the diarrhea is, because if it's an inflammatory bowel condition, then you know you got to use a specific treatment for that. Okay, if it's a tumor, the person may need surgery. All right, so it depends on the cause. As we said, most diarrhea is going to be mild and it's going to be self-limiting. But once you start having this persistent diarrhea, you would then find out, and you find the cause out, you then treat it accordingly.
Okay. So what are some of the questions the patient should be able to answer during their doctor's visit?
Yes, so this one was important to me extremely, because we always talk about the empowered patient.
Yes.
And more we have these discussions, I realize that patients aren't prepared, and it's not knocking the patient, it's informing them. They're not prepared to see their physician. Because I often ask, so what medication you have? Well, I take a little blue pill, or take a little pill. I say, no, well, I don't know the pills like that. You've got to know the name of the pill. So I encourage persons to take an image of their medication, have it in their phone, because people walk with their phone all the time. And I also challenge them. I said, but you put this drug in your mouth every day, you should at least know the name of that drug, because that's a part of you. So we need to. So persons, we talk about being prepared. So it's going to be important. When your doctor asks you how long you've had the diarrhea, you have to be specific. How much stools are you having, bowel motion are you having daily? You've got to be able to say that. Okay, day 1 you had 6. How much you've had in day 2? Or day 3. You may not be 100% accurate, but you need to be as close so that you are aware of what's going on. Because these are things you've got to take note of. I love when a patient take out a notepad when they come to visit the office. So it means that they're taking their visit serious. Okay, whether your diarrhea comes or goes, that's going to be important, or it's a diarrhea that's constant. Can you think of any food that might have triggered it off? Any new foods that you introduced, okay? Is there any blood in your stool? Does it look oily, fatty, or watery? Remember, we talk about the consistency can give you some indication. Any other associated symptoms? Remember, we talk about, importantly, if there is abdominal pain, if there's fever, there's vomits, there's nausea, those associated symptoms with the diarrhea. That's going to be very important. Do you have a family history of having chronic diarrhea? Does this diarrhea comes all the time? Maybe you say, Doc, yeah, almost every month I'm having this diarrhea, then it stops a little bit, then it comes back again. Have you traveled recently? We spoke about the traveler's diarrhea. You've gone to a new place, a strange place. The water is not sanitized. The water is from a different source, I don't know. And you ingest some sort of bacteria from that. You can have a traveler's diarrhea. Any medications that you may have started, that's important. If you're using antibiotics, if you're taking or abusing laxatives, if you've lost a lot of weight. That could lead for the physician to start thinking, do you have a malignancy, a colon cancer that's associated with the diarrhea? Think about it, Hortensia. If you have a tumor inside of your colon, that tumor is going to block some of the solid material from passing, but it doesn't block the liquid or the watery. So that's why you can have an obstruction or partial obstruction in the presence of having watery stools. So you have to be careful about that, okay? And another thing, persons often, that's why I don't like to recommend these drugs to stop diarrhea, because you have to first know why is the cause of the diarrhea. Because person in the presence of a tumor having watery stools, then they go and stop the diarrhea by giving them something that's going to slow it down or stop it, but not really knowing what's the underlying cause.
Okay. We know we got a lot of home remedies. Mix a little Angostura in some water, drink plain black tea bag tea. Doc, what are some of the home remedies for that?
Okay, but you're correct. A lot of those things do work. You want to do something important that we talk about, staying hydrated and drinking lots of fluid. You want to make sure that stuff with electrolytes to replace some of the electrolytes that you're losing. You want to avoid things like caffeine. We know that caffeine can worsen diarrhea.
So then we shouldn't drink the plain black tea then?
So those little teas having caffeine in them, so be careful with that. So you're looking for ones that do not have caffeine. You want to have chicken broth. They they say without fat. So you don't want anything fatty or greasy. To think about. You want to make sure you avoid lots of drinks that have lots of sugar in them. There is a diet that we talk about often in medicine. So it's banana for the B, rice, applesauce, and you want to have toast. So you want to introduce light foods or dry foods. Sometimes that's why you're told to have some crackers.
Yeah.
You want to avoid things that are milky at that initial state, okay? And this diet helps to firm the stool back up, all right? Yes, so that's why that is important. You want to add things like potatoes, they suggest some noodles, fish, skinless chicken, and turkey as you start to feel much better. Avoid alcohol as well, the dreaded alcohol that we speak about all the time on the show, and caffeine, all right? Sodas, you want to avoid those things. You want to avoid chocolates. Those can make your diarrhea worse, and alcohol can make you become even more dehydrated. Especially if you're losing a lot of water via thing. Avoid gassy foods. We talk about the sodas. They also speak about beans, cabbage, Brussels sprout, beer, and fizzy drinks. Any of these carbonated drinks, they can make your tummy more upset and worsen the diarrhea, and they can also, because they're loaded with sugars, you don't want to have those.
All right. So how can diarrhea be prevented?
Well, just by doing some basic things. Washing your hands. Oh, that's going to be utmost importance, because what? Most of the diarrhea is going to be coming by some hand-to-mouth contact, the contamination in a kitchen, so you have to make sure you store your food away adequately. If you have those meats, because people are doing lots of meats and stuff, you know, salmonella and those bacteria can get, you have to make sure these meats are cooked at the adequate temperature. I'm not a chef, but you have to know your temperatures that you need to cook these meat adequately so that the individual do not get any food poisoning. You want to refrigerate leftovers promptly. Sometimes you forget, you go in the bedroom and 3 hours, 4 hours, the leftovers are still on the stove. You know, our climate is very warm, so you have to be careful with that. You have to be making sure that you serve food immediately after you would have prepared it. You want to know that if you go into the bathroom, once you're done, they said wash your hands. You remember during COVID, you've got to wash your hands for at least 20 seconds with soap, all right? And most of the times we do a quick wash off and we don't wash our hands adequately. Once you're in the kitchen and you're working with food, especially meats and all those things, you're going to make sure clean down the counter, wash your hands consistently. Because you want to avoid that, because remember we say that most of the diarrhea is going to be as a result of viral, bacterial or parasitic contact. You know, these kids, you remember when we used to play outside in the dirt? These young kids don't play outside in the dirt. And we come in and we always had the worms, and our parents would give us the wormers. It's because of that contact with the dirt, and then we put our hands in our mouth, so it's usually going to be and so we get the what we call the eggs from the parasites, and that get into our digestive system.
Become worms.
Yeah, and then they grow, and then we have the worms that we pass them out. But now we don't see that as much because we're not playing outdoors and having those things.
Some kids distracted elsewhere
with the iPads and
they don't know what they're missing, boy. They don't know what they're missing.
So in essence, that is what we want our audience to keep in mind, that you've got to be able to recognize that you're having this diarrhea, 3 or more loose stools, loose or watery stool, and it's not your normal. If you're accustomed to, go twice a day.
All right, caller, go ahead. You're live on Weekly Dose.
Yes, hello, it's me. Well, I've been listening on and off, but so I was just like to ask the good doctor a question. Did you mention about lactose or milk, especially for black people?
Repeat the question, please.
Diarrhea? Hello?
Could you repeat the question for her?
Yes. Did you mention that milk or lactose intolerance, for especially where black people are concerned? It does be problematic with diarrhea for black people?
Yes, we spoke about lactose intolerance as food, as a cause of diarrhea. We spoke about viruses, bacteria, parasites. We spoke about certain medications like antibiotics, laxative, and we did speak about lactose intolerance. Persons who are lactose intolerant, they're allergic to, they have food allergies like to gluten. We call that celiac disease. These persons can have diarrhea. Yes.
Yeah, but and black people seem to be more affected.
Well,
by
I don't have any
lactose
data on it.
intolerance.
That's why I didn't go there. I don't have any knowledge of it affecting blacks more than any other demographic.
Yeah,
so I will have to
people
be.
of African descent.
Well, we'll have to be careful.
Yeah.
I haven't seen any data on that. So remember, we
Yes.
like to focus on science here. So I don't know any data of blacks being affected more, but I know lots of persons have food allergies and are lactose intolerant. So you would have to avoid those lactose. Lactose is a type of sugar, and once broken down, your body cannot handle it, and that's why the person have this large amount of diarrhea after consuming lactose.
Yeah. Doc, there's something that ain't really the same way to do it with diarrhea, but it's something that I would like to suggest that maybe one of these days you might be able to choose to tackle it as is opportune for you. You see, I've heard a lot of doctors, like, in the public forum speaking, but what I've never really heard any touch on, and it is very important, are the dangers of sleep apnea and snoring that do cause such things as hypertension, diabetes, and that sort of stuff. And
Yeah, that's a topic we can discuss at some point.
Right, yeah.
Usually we look for inspiration, and it's something that is common, but we do know we have patients with sleep apnea in our community.
Yeah, and I don't hear doctors when they're on the radio and so speak about that. I've never heard of any. And the importance of having a sleep center as well. Okay, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome, Carla. There's so many topics in medicine that we can talk about. What is important too, and we always say medicine, common things are common. So we have got to enlighten our community on things that we know will affect them on a day-to-day. And I try to bring those topics when we talk about the appendicitis, the hernias, the colon cancer, the breast cancer, the enlarged prostate, and we've went through them, the heart disease, the hypertension, the complication of diabetes, because we know that we see these quite often in our communities, and those are extremely important to address. Over time, of course, we're going to discuss many topics, and sometimes we've got to repeat some of the topics, because repetition is the mother of learning. And we're not going to be perfect and get all of the topics right, but we want to emphasize the most common one, because our professors would always say, why learn about something weird and wonderful that is only seen in 1% of the population, and you do not dominate a common thing like hypertension, diabetes. We do not talk about diabetic foot. We do not speak about colon cancer or breast cancer that are so prevalent in our community. That's why we try to choose topics that are frequent and that we see in our community. So we'll always try to get to as much topic as we can, and we always welcome the suggestions, because sometimes you're racking your brain. What do you think the people want to hear next? All right. So it's always good to get feedback from our listeners. And it's important to not to listen to the show half in parts or in pieces.
Yes, so
you don't miss anything.
You have to listen right through. We appreciate
But it's
you.
we always appreciate the comments, the concerns. And I know a lot of persons would tell me, Doc, I listen to you every Tuesday. Some persons do not feel comfortable calling in, but we are just happy that we get the information out to them as well too.
Indeed. Well, Doc, it's always a pleasure. The education is welcome by all of us. I think I can put my head on a block for that one. And as you said, thank you to the callers for suggestion. Thank you for coming in. Have yourself a great Tuesday. Try your best not to work too hard today.
Yes.
I know that's impossible, but try.
I'll do my best. And just be kind to one another. Let's show each other some grace today. Have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.
WINN is 98.9. 98.9 is Win FM.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib, it's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
Let's stop child sexual abuse. The age of consent is 16, yet our 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, and 10-year-olds are becoming victims of sexual abuse and exploitation, which is being forced into sexual activity before they are old enough to decide. This causes mental, emotional, and physical harm to our children. Parents, it is your responsibility to protect and to educate your children. Develop a relationship of trust with your child. If they trust you, they will tell you. Child sexual abuse cannot be our norm. We must work together to correct this. Help us prevent, help us protect, help us prosecute. A message by the Department of Probation and Child Protection Services. Contact us at 467-1311 or 662-6833 for more information.
St. Kitts and Nevis, it's time to celebrate! We're raising our glasses and saying cheers to 20 years as your trusted telecommunications provider. And because we love our amazing customers, we're giving you the chance to win. Every week, we've got exciting prizes just for you. And that's not all. Step into a cash vault for a shot at $2,000 in cash. To qualify, switch to Digicel, activate a 3-day plan or higher. Pay your bill in full. Sign up for postpaid or a new Digicel Plus internet package. Stay connected, keep enjoying the best service, and get ready to win. 20 years strong, and we're just getting started. Visit a Digicel retail store today.
You ever hear Earthquake call and say, "Hello, Miss Lee, yes, it's me, Earthquake, I come in Tuesday around 10? No, sir. Earthquake does arrive unannounced, and when it come, it shake all sense and sensibility out of we. Remain calm, stay inside, and do the DCH. Drop, cover, hold on. Once the shaking starts, you know it's earthquake. Make a quick move to a safe place. Don't run to the door, we are in the exit. Stairs might broke up or full of people. Elevator, avoid that, because you might get in and poof, power gone, and you're stuck in that box without ear. Take cover under a strong table or a bed, or crouch against an inside wall or in a corner, and cover your face and your head with your arms. Remember, DCH, drop, cover, hold on. Glass windows and doors, outside walls and doors in an earthquake, bad news. Take care yourself. Most injuries during earthquakes happen when something drop and hit people entering or exiting a building. Last thing, nobody run outside and ask, you feel it, you feel it? Remain calm, stay indoors until all the shaking stop, and do the DCH, drop, cover, hold on.
This message is sponsored by the Australian Government, AusAid, and produced by NEMA in collaboration with winnfm.
Welcome to Island Tea with your faves. Keep it locked in with us for your daily dose of hot tea, only on Win Media 98.9.
And we are back on Island Tea. And Quint, I just saw the funniest thing. I don't know if it's true, if it's just AI or whatever, because, you know, you can't believe everything on the internet. Trump has a personal vendetta with Harvard. Apparently his son didn't get in. And I'm seeing something else that says Malia Obama got in, but Barron Trump's application was rejected. So Trump war on Harvard ignited after Barron Trump didn't get in. I wonder how true that is. I have to do some more research on that.
Maybe it's not true, but the Trump that we know, he would do something like that.
But everybody's not for everywhere. Yeah. Well. That's why they're saying he really can't stop them from not allowing international students to come, because a lot of international minds are bright, and a lot of their research and a lot of outcomes what happens with these foreign students at Harvard.
Yeah.
Because we know foreign students, I don't want to say they do come with a wealth of knowledge. I'll just leave it there.
The statistics show that the foreign students have been excelling in relation to the American students.
Okay, you said what I didn't want to say. Thank you, sir. All right, just to remind us, though, that A substantial cloud of Saharan dust is currently impacting St. Kitts and Nevis. Hazy conditions are expected over the coming days. Based on projected models, conditions may improve by midweek but could worsen over the weekend. The significant presence of Saharan dust may cause reduced visibility with hazy, slightly yellowish skies. The air quality is likely to deteriorate over the coming days. The St. Kitts Meteorological Services and NEMA continues to closely monitor the weather conditions across the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. So, persons, beware, be cautious, wear your mask. I know it comes easy for us now. For those of you with respiratory issues, please, I know you have to be outside, just take the extra precaution. Every life in the Federation is valuable to us.
Well, we're fast approaching the hurricane season.
Oh boy.
Which starts in June. That's just around the corner.
Just now, in a few days.
So
4 days time. June is
funny-
going to be
it's funny
popping in
that-
on Sunday.
it's
Hi,
funny that-
hello.
It's funny that the hurricane starts in June, and that's my birth month.
Mine too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're Juning over here. Yeah, and you know, June is supposed to be the love month. We have a lot of weddings, we have a lot of births. I don't understand why hurricane has to come and want to ruin our month. Who sends it?
Who says that you don't have hurricanes in love relationships?
I know, all of them, storms. Storms that make you stronger for those of us that decide to weather the storm.
There are
Because
good
nothing
storms
comes
too.
easy. Huh?
There are good storms.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
But you know, you have to weather the bad to get to the better, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Most definitely.
Caller, go ahead. You're live on Island T. Good morning.
Good morning to you too.
How are you doing?
Kinda not too good.
All righty.
Well,
Let's
here's
see.
hoping you feel better as the day goes
Yeah.
Well, I don't think that they're going to change it, you know.
Oh, wow.
I think his administration
by. Okay.
needs to change. I'm moving. Now, listen to me. This is a problem. When government gets involved too much in things that they don't know about, they always create a problem. I'm referring, as my lament is always agriculture.
Yeah.
The government has a marketing department where the functionaries do not understand the difference between marketing and selling. So what they're doing is something like this. Even the vendors on the street are way more informed in this business than these people. Now, months ago, I called, I'm giving you an example of what I'm talking about. I called the agriculture department. I asked them, how much is a pound of pumpkin wholesale? They said $2. Yesterday, I asked the agriculture department, how much is the wholesale price for a pound of pumpkin? The marketing department said $1.50. 20 years ago, 2010, people listen to me, because this is serious. We were selling pumpkin in 2010, 15 years ago, $2 a pound wholesale. We were selling cabbages, $2 a pound wholesale. We were selling cucumbers. That's an example. $2 a pound wholesale. We were selling melons, $2 a pound wholesale. All the items I call, the government is now selling wholesale at $1.50. Now these people getting paid, you know. It is said by the ministry that the majority of farmers, I think it says 60% of the farmers are part-time farmers. When you look at it, probably half of the workers at the department are registered farmers. Now, my question is, Why is it that the majority of farmers are only part-time? The answer is farming can't pay. 2010, we were buying, I'm going to give you an example of insecticide called Phoenix. For $100, we were selling the produce for $2. Today, the same item is $200 when we are selling the produce for less. The department, the people up there, where would they be? Sitting and deciding, oh, things plentiful, so we're going to drop the price. Things scarce, so we can keep the price. Absolute rubbish. They got high-end and low-end customer where they sell this one for that one and that one. Farmers ain't care about that. The price is the price across the board. The government cannot be sitting and affecting my income, the way I support myself, my family, pay my bills, and decide how to regulate the prices up and down. Nobody consult with farmers. It's very insulting, you know. The minister is insulting the farmers. He has not sit more than 3 times, maybe twice, once, with the farmers to discuss how can the department on their own decide when they're going to carry up and when they're going to drop. Nothing. No item, we say, tomatoes knocking dog. Indulge me a little bit. Tomatoes only knock dog for 3 weeks. We say cucumber knocking dog only for 3 weeks. Our problem, if there is one, is storage. Not you come up with a crop and you ain't know what to do with it. You can't sell it, so you give it away. That's what the government is doing and throwing away food rather than marketing the produce. They are simply up there selling. They're sales people. They're not no marketing people. They do not have an idea of what it is or the meaning of the word marketing and the meaning of the word selling. The salesperson closed the deal that the marketing agent made. Marketing is going out and looking market, creating toys and what I'm saying, you know, it seemed to me like the administration is in tandem with the neo-colonialists and the imperialists to make sure that the colonies never, in any form, attain food security. How can we grow in agriculture when the cost has gone up 100%, but the produce has gone down 25%? It is an absolute wrong. It is abuse.
Let me ask you a question.
Let
me ask you a question, if possible. This has been an ongoing thing. Are you aware if the government discourages farming cooperatives and or farmers from getting places where they can do their own storage?
I don't know that. What I do know is this. Farmers ain't got that kind of capital. But we come from slavery, start working piece of ground. All the land was controlled by the sugar plantation owners. The people were set free without capital. We depend on our collective taxes and appoint people in position to effect effectively manage the resources so that together we can afford proper storage facilities. It comes to me like I gotta do it myself, you know.
Here's the reason. Here's the reason I ask. I understand the position you're in. As like I said, it has been an ongoing thing, but there must be a way of looking in the future for sustainability for the farmers. This cannot go on. So in the event that, say, it doesn't seem as if this system is going to help you, I may be wrong, but in the future, if the system changes, what I propose the farmers do is find a way. You have your collective cooperatives and so forth. Find a way in conjunction, in combination with your collective associations, the government, and whatever institution will give you a certain percentage of financing and get the capital to do some storage. It may not start big, but that is what you're going to have to do in the future, because you cannot have, especially those perishable goods, that as good as our product are, like cucumbers and tomatoes, they still only have a period of shelf life. So you're going to have to look forward to that in the future. Another thing farmers are going to have to do is to push pressure on the government to let some farming and some farming associations, some farming cooperatives be able to own land. Farmers have got to, some farmers, depending on how big you are and how long you intend to be in the farming, you've got to be able to live on the farm. If you look around the world and you look at farms, you see people live on the farms. They have barns, they have this, they store their hay.
Listen to what I'm saying.
Yes.
I'm saying the cost of production has risen 100%. The government has reduced the cost of the produce by 25%. So when you put it together, farmers are in the deep 125%.
I hear you. I hear
you.
You I hear you.
In the future, we should dissolve. The people should take a serious position. Dissolve the entire Ministry of Agriculture. Now, in this time, the agriculture budget gone down, you know. A short tourism gone up. And any day no boat could come. We need to dissolve the department. Take the monies that we are paying from the minister down. Put it in an escrow account and give access to farmers. Get grant. Because we're paying them, so we give away the money. Gaston Brown said, with the increasing global issues, his government is going to give farmers grants between $5,000 and $10,000 to encourage people to plant. Our government is doing, every time a shipment or supply comes, the prices increase by at least 15%. How can any kind of business exist under these terms? The aim is to get rid of agriculture and follow the focus of the minister and the prime minister into ganja and go work for Tabasco to grow hot pepper. Me no know what we gonna eat. Bless my people.
Caller, I hear you 100%, and that is why I'm saying, and that is why I said, it seems that the system that exists presently has no intention of helping the farmers. That is the only conclusion logically that we can come to. This has been an ongoing thing, and it is getting worse. And I hear you clearly that costs are going up in terms of your pesticide and your whatever you're going to use, but they're determining when to carry a price and when to, without any consultation. I mean, this seems to be intentional. This is not a program or process for sustainable development in agriculture. So all I can say is you're going to have to put your heads together and see what you can do. If this system doesn't work for you, then you got to find a way to change it.
One that will work.
Yes.
Food security is national security. Tourism is not.
Yeah.
The other day the government went Cuba, what they went go carry. Food security is national security. So, national security is not a man with a gun ready to kill somebody because they go take something to eat. National security is guaranteeing that the other person doesn't have to go rob somebody to eat food because he has or she has food. People are missing. The outside administration has no idea. The captain of the team never played the game, can't correct nobody, can't call a play, has no say. The whole thing needs to change. We need to get rid of this offside government or any other one that comes and decide that tourism must always be given.
But caller, you keep saying tourism, and I cannot understand for the life of me where tourism is going to advance and you don't have a sustainable agriculture in your country. It doesn't make any sense. And I've never heard before in all my years of existence where farmers are so disillusioned, and I've never heard it before. If someone has heard this before to this extent, then call me and correct me, but this is the worst I've heard the farmers complaining in my lifetime.
Let me say this. It's not help. It's not help. And it's why I say a budget must include some form of subsidies, assistance in some way. In Europe, a while ago, the whole Europe shut down. You know why? Because the government proposed reducing the farmers' diesel subsidy. They spread manure, feces, and buildings, shut down major highways. I know you all must be aware of it.
Yeah, we're well aware.
The government decide to reduce the farmers' subsidies. You see why we could get food from foreign? Because the government is involved. It is not assisting. It is a ministry to promote food. It is the job of the department not to farm or beg you nothing. It's to see the need and the importance is how do we promote planting more potato, yam, and dasheen. Now how much we going to charge the farmer for land preparation, for insecticide, herbicide, no oversight whatsoever. It is out of order. We, the people, are saying, kids, if people don't wake up, come out of the political divide, the PAM and Labour, because when you're in PAM, what you say is because you're Labour.
Yeah.
And because you're in Labour, what you say, because you're PAM, what you say is because you're in Labour. Anyway, y'all get the point.
Yeah.
We need to come out of that divide. That's how they keep us divided.
Caller.
Keep us suppressed and keep us down.
You only mentioned St. Kitts. You didn't say Nevis. So you're saying you believe that Nevis, the agricultural sector in Nevis is going well?
Well, Nevis is way ahead, you know.
Okay.
I went to Nevis on a trip, and every farm I visited had water. In St. Kitts, the government give farmers drip line and ain't give them no water. What you going to do with drip line without water? That's how St. Kitts government work. Nevis give them water.
And drip lines.
So once they give water, the need for drip line is now established.
Yeah.
Not you give me drip line, I ain't got no water. I have no need for drip line.
Okay. Understood.
Nevis is way ahead.
You think it worked? You think the agriculture sector worked better when you had a federal agricultural minister?
Yes. It must work better. Because when you say federal,
remember we had a federal minister for a short while, caller.
Oh.
Did you think that agriculture worked better then?
I wouldn't say that.
Okay.
I would commend Ron Collins.
Okay.
Ron Collins came in agriculture with no experience really, or little, but he is a person who can be taught. He focused on learning. He went to the farms. He was involved. He didn't stay in the office and write on paper. He executed the office.
Okay.
I admire him. I didn't know him. I might have got problems with him. Political problem, because you ain't no people, and most with division is politics.
Yeah.
We choose with friends by political affiliation.
Yeah.
You ain't got no PAM friend, you ain't got no Labour friend. You ain't got no PLP and happy friend, CCM. We choose our relation by political affiliations. Ron Collins did a good job.
Okay.
So I would commend he.
Is
now,
there
the minister, maybe I never really seen the minister too much. But Ron executed the job.
Okay.
Maybe you need things like that.
Okay.
So when the minister is missing in action, the PS
is out and about.
Has the capabilities.
Okay.
Here we got nothing. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But it's the truth.
Well, the truth is the truth.
Yep. And the truth shall set you free.
Yeah. Well,
have a good day, you all.
Yeah,
Thank you.
You take care.
I wonder if there's. We have an next caller?
No.
Okay, I wonder if there's any room for the farmers just to work among themselves federally, because we need that. Because as he rightfully said, if we don't have that, then what do we have?
But there is room, but still it would have to come down to, you notice he kept putting the emphasis on how we are doing things, and we are doing things, unfortunately, in the vein of politics. And that is the handicap.
And when it comes to food, that should
never
be.
That is a
that
handicap.
should never come first.
And as you said that, imagine, I never thought we would reach a point where we would hear farmers actually begging the system to allow them to grow food.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
And begging the system to meet with them too. Caller, good morning. You're live on ILNT.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
Good day.
I'm good. How are you guys?
Good.
Trying to be better than yesterday.
All right. Okay. Now, listening, right? This now at this point, it is beyond the farmers, right?
Yeah.
This now is time for the average citizen now to realize that if the farmers are to realize that they're gonna be a day when the ship is not gonna be able to come in, and again. If we did not learn from COVID, when are we going to learn again? If COVID didn't teach the government a lesson, when are they going to learn? I mean, to hear the farmers complaining day in, day out, this is now beyond the farmers. I think the average citizen now needs to cry out and realize that, look, you're compromising me eating someday. I might not be able to eat food if the ship stops.
Yep.
How am I gonna maintain? How are we gonna be sustained? I mean, without food, after a while you're gonna die. You're gonna starve. And let me tell you, America ain't gonna come in a plane, come drop no food from the sky.
Nobody's
we
gonna
need-
come.
we need-
Not only America. Nobody.
Exactly.
Everybody's
Nobody
gonna
can
be
drop
keeping
no
their
food
food for
from the
their
sky.
food.
Yeah.
Yep. Not only the U.S.
It's time now for the average man to cry out and let the government know. Cut it out. I mean, the farmers are crying out. Assist the farmers. Help them to grow the food that is going to sustain the country. You
'Cause
can't
all of
live
them are
off of
gonna benefit.
tourism.
Every single one of us, from top to bottom, is going to benefit.
Exactly. You can't eat. The tourists come off the ship. They come on the ship half the time. They don't even spend the money when they come ashore. They come off the ship, they gone, they look around and they go back on the ship, they gone back, come back to America to their cozy life. So come on now, it sounds really sickening. It sounds like Quinn said, this sounds like deliberate. It sounds really deliberate. Like somebody is telling you, don't help the farmers so you can maintain yourself. So you have to rely on the ship to come in. Don't we realize that's power we giving to another authority? You're giving the power to America's ship, America, and the port. You're giving the power to them because if they don't decide, look me, we're not sending the food down there.
How many times?
What's gonna happen to people?
How many times have we seen during COVID and recently when they had this thing where the Houthis were attacking those ships? How many times do we go into the supermarkets and see them looking almost virtually empty?
The other day, I went in just last week, and some of the shelves shocked me.
Yeah.
I'm like, boy, it's happening. And I don't know if people are aware, but I'm very much aware.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, you only have to get on them. And we're dealing with a president now. Don't get on his bad side. So you only got to get on his bad side. Say something he don't like.
That's it.
That bugger stop that ship from coming in your port. That your head would turn like poltergeist.
Yep.
So come on, we gotta be real. The people the farmers are crying out, and it's time now for the average man to realize that the government is putting their stomach at risk because there's no food. You're gonna suffer. The farmers should not be, and I tell you all the time when we talk this thing, we got fertile land. It sounds stupid over the ear when we can't sustain ourselves.
Yeah.
We sound really stupid. We sound backwards because we have fertile land. Food should be like, no, we should have no problem with food. The farmers should not be crying out.
That's true.
People need to stand up. It's time now. This is beyond the farmers. It's time for the average man to speak out. Have a good day, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you for your contribution.
Yeah, let's take a bit of a commercial break and we'll be right back.
We're different. We're 98.9. 98.9 Win FM.
This Father's Day weekend at Builder's Paradise, we've got big deals for dad and low prices for all. Yes, we've got a massive 25% off store-wide on all discountable items. Yes, 25% off Builder's Paradise, already low everyday prices. From power tools to paint, lumber to lighting and more. It's all at Builder's Paradise. And it's all on sale. Show dad some love for the gear he wants at everyday low prices you love. But don't wait. The sale runs for 3 days only. Thursday, June 12th, Friday, June 13th, and Saturday, June 14th. Father's Day weekend only at Builder's Paradise, where big deals for dad and everyday low prices for all come together. Happy Father's Day from Builder's Paradise.
Get ready for the biggest Father's Day weekend sale ever. From June 12th to 14th, Hostas Furniture and Appliances, Ashley Furniture Home Store, Hostas Building and Nevis Centers, and Builders Paradise are bringing you incredible savings and a special men's health and wellness fair. Take 25% off at Hostas Furniture and Appliances, plus double cash back for free groceries with every higher purchase. It's the perfect time to upgrade your home and fill your pantry. And that's not all. Get 25% off store-wide at Hostas Building and Nevis Centers Centers and Builders Paradise on all discountable items. On Saturday, June 14th, don't miss our Men's Health and Wellness Fair at Hostels Building and Nevis Centers from 9 a.m. to 12 noon. Get free diabetes, HIV, blood pressure checks, plus customer giveaways and so much more. Celebrate that this Father's Day weekend only at Hostels Furniture and Appliances, Ashley Furniture Home Store, Hostels Building and Nevis Centers, and Builders Paradise. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome to Island Tea with your faves. Keep it locked in with us for your daily dose of hot tea only on Win Media 98.9.
Yeah, and we're back. The time 9:41, and we were discussing off the air the bafflement that we just can't wrap our heads around it. We just cannot comprehend what is going on with the agriculture system and the farmers.
The sector, yeah.
It doesn't make any sense to us.
None whatsoever.
Hello, caller.
Good. Hello, Quint and Contentia. It's me again. Now, first of all, I would like to say that when will we learn that the more government involved themselves in things, in the long run, it always works out for the worse, not for the better.
Well, Greg, the private sector ain't coming forward. I know you always say the private sector should do this and the private sector should do that.
Cortensia, in this instance, his point is very valid. It shows where when government decides it wants to have a monopoly on anything, it is a recipe for disaster. Now, we may not agree with him that, because it seems to us, we may be wrong, that he is saying government shouldn't intervene and help certain things and so forth. But then again, I don't think he's saying that, because I think just not too long ago when he called, he commended Ibrahim. What Greg seemed to be saying is
he commended him, but still don't want him to do it.
Short-term intervention from the government isn't a problem. Where Greg has a problem, and I'm beginning to see more and more what he's saying. When you, for instance, here's the example. Cortensia, you need some help. I'm the government. I give you some help. You start up, but when you get on your feet, let me step out and let you run and so forth. But the government doesn't seem to want to do that. After you're running, they want to stipulate the price you're going to get for your product, how they're going to sell your product, and all that handicap and your growth and your advancement. And I think that is what Greg is saying. Am I wrong, Greg?
Quinn, partly.
Okay. So partly.
Partly. Because yes.
So enlighten us on the part where we're wrong.
Yes. The part where you're wrong is that I believe government should play no part at all in these things. Agriculture, that sort of stuff, other than giving the people the land, give the people the land, give your ownership to the land so you could build your house and your barns and so on the land, and that's it.
Give you the land at an affordable price.
Of course.
Okay,
course, because I believe...
I can work through that. I can see that.
Yes.
Because if you get the land is empowerment, and if you get the land will help you to get capital, and over time, I can see through that.
No, you're talking me language.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, but I only mentioned that as a side thing because that's not really what I wanted to speak about. But I'm glad that you still said what you said.
Yes.
But what I really wanted to speak about, because I want to read a little summary of the IMF report concerning St. Kitts Nevis. And it is dated May the 13th, 2025, coming from the IMF report. Well, it's a summary of the IMF report on St. Kitts Nevis. It's a short summary, Quint, so I'm going to try to read it, but it's short, it ain't a long thing. So let me read it and say this. In the context of a moderation of growth following the post-pandemic rebound, the economy is facing significant challenges. The fiscal outlook has notably deteriorated. Let me read that again. The fiscal outlook has notably deteriorated against the background of structurally low citizenship by investment CBI revenues. And the current account deficit has widened. Public banks are facing long-standing weaknesses. Read that again. Public banks are facing long-standing weaknesses, which may have important implications for financial stability and fiscal sustainability. While lending from private banks and credit unions is expanding rapidly. Now, this has quite a few implications for the Federation. Now, I have always speaked out against the CBI program, and I'm always in disagreement with it. As a matter of fact, even while I was working, even under the Douglas regime government, I have called in and radio and speak out against the CBI. So long I'm doing these things, speaking out, and I disagree with the CBI. Nevertheless, the reality is the CBI does exist, and the government is putting, at least it seems to me, is putting most of the eggs in the CBI basket for sustainability and what's not, which is very foolish. But as the report shows you, because of the CBI drop in revenue, the fiscal outlook has notably deteriorated, as the report says. So you see the foolishness of we putting so many of we eggs in the CBI program. Not only that, it says public banks are facing long-standing weaknesses. But who do you think the public banks are? At the very least, I would think it is National Bank and Development Bank. At the very least. And they're facing long-standing weaknesses, which has important implications for financial stability and fiscal sustainability. That means they ain't look too good, they ain't look good where financial stability and fiscal sustainability are concerned. They ain't looking good in that context. They're looking bad in that context. While lending from private banks and credit unions is expanding rapidly. So it is saying that the private banks and the credit union, they are increasing the giving of loans, and it is rapid. Now, the question is, first of all, I would have loved to have seen the information on the failure of people paying back their loans. I would have loved to see that information because I suspect it is very high. I suspect. But let me say this. One of the reasons I would argue, and I would argue strongly, why these financial institutions are rapidly increasing the giving of, why people are rapidly borrowing from them in greater numbers, is because I would argue strongly, from my belief, that because the cost of living is going up, because inflation is going up, price inflation is going up, people are now more and more have to turn to the banks to borrow money to keep up with the cost of living. And that is not good, because that means now personal debts, if I am correct, are at record highs. And I suspect, once I'm correct, I'm suspecting that people paying off the loans, the failure of people paying off the loans is increasing. I'm suspecting that because things are very hard and difficult right now. I mean, people failing to pay off the loans even when things wasn't so difficult was bad enough. So don't tell me that people are now paying off the loans more when things are worse. And this is my argument. These are I'm suspecting. I have not seen the numbers, so I can't talk definitely to these issues. But I'm just using what seems to me to be the sensible conclusion, the rational conclusion. So we are in a very, very terrible, terrible situation. And like people come here to hear me say this, but hey, the truth is the truth, and we either learn it one way or the other. We are in this terrible position because of our disobedience to the Bible. We won't listen to the Bible, and people here to hear me say that. We are going down a financial cliff to our own destruction, and the only solution and the only answer is doing things the Bible way, and we need to first get right with Jesus Christ. So I would encourage people to go on the IMF site and read at least the summary that I've just read. Now, when I said it yesterday on Voices, and I said something else about Africa, because in spite of doing
Greg,
bad economically.
We have another caller.
Okay.
Guys, I'm listening to Greg, right? And I think a couple weeks ago, I mentioned a recording, I think, that they have out about the 10 Caribbean countries that are on the brink of collapse. And the person that was reading the thing, we was number 10 on the list. And it said our collapse is not gonna be a spectacular collapse. It's gonna be a slow bleed. We're collapsing slowly. We're bleeding slowly. The person went on to say that 50% of government, we relied on the selling of the passport. And they stressed that instead of it being agriculture, we should have been focusing on agriculture. We focus on just selling this passport. And with that being slowed down, it's telling us that we on the brink of collapse. So I guess the IMF, everybody must be in cahoots. Something just not adding up here. But we better take heed and take warning.
When you get a prediction that says that you will experience a slow death, as bad as it sounds, if your system is aware, it means that there is hope. It means that you can gradually find ways of impeding that slow deterioration. But when we look at what is happening presently, especially when it comes to agriculture, it means that we will continue to have that slow bleed and that slow death, because the one thing that we should be looking at for some form of internal stability is the one thing we are not paying heed to.
Exactly, and that's what the person got put out this thing. They actually mentioned agriculture, showing that we're not focused on agriculture. The government more focused on selling passport. So that's where we grab we main income from, the passport. We're not looking about agriculture. That's why he said the collapse ain't going to be a spectacular collapse. It's not going to just boom, but it's a slow bleed. So you're just bleeding out.
Yeah.
God help, think it's Nevis. Without vision, people perish.
Yeah.
That's the word of God. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Okay, Greg, wrap up.
Quint, I'm not going to stay long.
Yeah.
And let me say this. Let me also say this. Instead of
Greg, before you go on, you've been in where was your employment? What's the name of that place again? Inland Revenue. Inland Revenue.
Yes, I was in custom 3 years before that, and then went to Inland Revenue.
Well, we're going to put emphasis on Inland Revenue. Having worked in Inland Revenue for so long, you are well aware of what a slow bleed means, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Death by 1,000 cuts?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
But Quint.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Yes, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No. Yeah, you know what we're going to say, because I want other people to come. What we're going to say is that instead of we demanding our government that cut this, cut that, spend less, privatize a lot of stuff that he's doing, and that sort of stuff, so it doesn't have this ballooning budget, but instead decreasing it. But instead, we are encouraging the government to go the opposite way, and here spend their tech and this is tech and that responsibility, provide this, provide that sort of stuff. Based upon this report and others in the past, too, and as the IMF has even recommended in the past, that the government sooner or later going to have to tremendously increase taxes and government fees once we continue to go down this road, and it's going to be very, very bad for us, for the economy, and most especially for the poor. Because they always feel it the worst.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank
Hello,
you.
caller.
Yeah. Hello, man. Good morning, man. How you guys doing?
Good morning. Good, thanks.
Yeah. The last point right there what Greg made, and the point that Cleo came in with, is what's going on in St. Kitts and Nevis. Believe it. The IMF report, the government should have come forward and explained that to the people and let the people know what we are facing as a nation. And the point that Cleo made, from what I'm seeing, when this administration came in and the field to themselves, they put it out there saying that they're the only one that's making changes to the CBI program. That was some BS. Instead, they should have concentrated on starting to diversify. They and pump that investment into agriculture. You know, when we come out to the amount of money that we captured, that raked into basket in the CBI program over the years, it is some figures that we cannot even comprehend.
Caller.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sir. Hold a minute.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Good morning. Yeah.
The other caller. Wait, caller. Wait.
Yeah,
Wait.
Okay.
Wait.
The new caller that's on. You can let me finish my point.
Yes, that's what I was going to say.
Mr. Jones, stay on the line.
Okay.
Mr. Jones, stay here.
Thank you. Yes, I will. Thank you, Quinn. Thank you, Quinn, for that. The people in St. Kitts and Nevis got to understand and got to realize the amount of money that came into Basque over 41 years in the CBI program. We should be in tip-top shape. We should be the beacon of the Caribbean. We should not be envying no other country in the Caribbean region at least. Based on our small size, our small population, we should be in tip-top shape. The money was mismanaged, and these leaders, they all need to move aside to make room for new persons with new ideas. They have all failed us. Instead of this new government, they came in, instead of them running around like chicken without a head to save that CBI program, they should have started to put that money into agriculture. They should have pumped that investment into agriculture. We found out over the weekend there was an article circulating about the marina being sold at Christoph Harbor, right? But that same Christoph Harbor entity, I'm hearing that they owe the government money. The OTI hotel was sold to MSR. TDC had owned that OTI hotel before the sale, and TDC had owed the government money. And I understand that the government was right there on the scene collecting their money off of that sale before the transfer to the new owner. And this should be the same thing at the Christoph Harbor. St. Kitts and Nevis people got to wake up. And lastly, my thing is that the grassroots supporters of this Labour government, they're going to have to come up from underneath that party line. They're going to have to come up from under that party line in order to collapse the system. All of the persons that be talking on the radio, on the ground, they need to unite and go in the street and break the system. And believe it or not, they can do it. They got to take that party line away in order to get that system broken. That's my last comment.
Okay, other caller. We're exactly on 10 o'clock, so you're going to have to be as concise as possible.
Great. Thank you, Quinn. Great. That caller that just spoke, he is so on top of the money of making that explanation. Brother Quinn, I'm going to elaborate on the Christoph Harbor. Okay? No.
Be very brief. Be very brief. Remember, we can always caller. Be very brief. Remember, we can always pick back up this topic on another session. Okay. So yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Due to the fact that I will not be able to finish, I will arrest my call and I will do it another time. Thank you.
No. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to give a brief bit of what you want to say and then pick it up another time. Go ahead.
This is the opening statement. The government of St. Kitts made a poor, calculated sale on Christophe Harbour. Due to the fact that there was a commitment was to be fulfilled and it did not.
Caller, are you sure that the Christophe Harbour has been sold?
I didn't say that. The marina.
Yeah, the marina. Are you sure that it has been sold?
I haven't seen the papers, but that's what I do.
Well. In a case like that, always say it is alleged.
Okay, it is alleged.
Yes.
Thank you for the correction. And you could correct me whenever, and I like that.
Yes.
But until there are clarification, should such a thing happen, it should not have been sold. Let the government get their 40 million, 20 million, 100 million, what is due to them. Let the National Bank get back what? And then Christophe Harbour will be free. Because right now, all parties' names should be on the deed, and there is not a release for such a transaction to happen as partial. It is wrong, and that is not right, and that is not in accordance with the law. I'm a man of law, and I'm a man of intelligence, and I'm a man of dynamic thinking. Right is right, and wrong is wrong. The government cannot sell out everything just like that. Okay? It must announce those things to the Federation. Because it seems like, just like how the CBI money has disappeared, just so all these transaction monies will be disappeared. And where they are going? Where is the money? Where and how much money being made from the sale of the Chinese, the selling of passport to the Chinese? And we still need to know how much passport sold to the Chinese and elsewhere. And all those who were involved in selling CBI passport, they are just as guilty, because they should have looked into the matter. If something is going wrong, what's going wrong, here going wrong, they should have looked into it to see, because this is our patrimony. Our country is not for sale. The Caribbean is not for sale. And I'm going to take back as much as I can, should I get the chance.
You see, caller, when I listen to people like you make utterances and so forth, knowing your intent to be if you could to be in government one of these days, right? When I hear people like you, I sometimes cringe, because I think to myself, it is all well and good to make these good speeches about what should be and what shouldn't be, but what is in your mind as to how you will progress? Because I can assure you, you would have to prove us wrong, or anyone else who is trying to get the reins of governance and be leaders. I can assure you that whenever they get into power, they're going to usually continue the same thing, because there seems to be no real plan as to how we will sustain these Caribbean islands. All we're hearing is talk, and it always sounds good to hear talk, but we have not up to this. I am a certain age in my life, and very few people I have seen in this time of my life who have really come and made a difference, right? The majority of I'm going to let you finish. I'm going to let you rebut. The majority of individuals like yourself who want to get the reins of power, when you get into power, the very same CBI you're talking about, I'm sure you're going to depend on that. You're going to be squeezing it, the last drip of blood from it, because like I said, you will have to prove us wrong. These systems would have to prove us wrong, because we are yet to see anybody who comes in after being in opposition and touting all these oh, this shouldn't be, and when we're going to do that, and we have not seen any difference. We've seen you get into power, and we have seen you continue the same old. As a matter of fact, when it comes to agriculture presently, it seems to me that this system that is in presently is taking the cake. The other portfolios like electricity and so on and so forth, they're limping along, they're trying to survive, but it seems to me when it comes to agriculture, whoever the agriculture minister is, he has no intent of developing agriculture. So I think I can venture to say this individual who is in control of agriculture so far seems to be the worst. If he still have some time, maybe he can make a turnaround, but I don't really see that happening unless we see things starting to change drastically from right now. Go ahead.
Brother Quinn, I believe I can penetrate your heart, your mind, and soul. And the psyche of me is not natured for bring suffocation to my people. I am a humanitarian, Quinn, and I am going to play to you and the rest of the world. I am warranted, and I know the road would not be tough because there was so much failures. There was so much promises. Who the hell I am to be given a pass? Try me. Why? Hoping I wouldn't fail. And I know I will not fail because I am not deviatic. I have an empathetic and a compassionate heart. And I really mean it. And that's what I am.
You think the present leader of our country doesn't have any empathy? You think he doesn't have? You think he is bereft of sympathy and compassion? Look. Having compassion and sympathy has nothing to do with being able to get a job done. You can have all the compassion and sympathy in the world. It comes down to whether you are efficient enough, you had plans before, and you have means of implementing these plans presently that will push us forward. And that is what I'm saying. You all, up to this point, have been lacking, have been found wanting. And I have no belief that you would be any different or anyone else would be any different until I see that. Okay? We've come to the end of our stint.
I anticipate that, Quinn. And everyone should hold that in mind until the chips fall where they may. But chances, we must allow to give chances to people.
Yeah, everybody says that.
Thank you for
Yeah, everybody says that.
Thank you for the time. But Quinn, a man like you and others, I shall have around me to give me good.
No, you're not. You're not gonna have me. You might have me critiquing you. You might have me saying, "You see, I told you so."
Quinty got a job.
Well, I will. Don't tell me you are going to die before such thing happen. I will find where your marker is, and I'll dig it up.
Well, you take care. Like I said, rhetoric, whole lot of rhetoric. What do you say, Hortensia?
Everybody talks a good talk until they get in.
Yeah. Everybody. Same old.
Around the world.
A Calypsonian said it's the same old Sankey. Yeah. Well, we've come to the end of another stint. The time is 9 minutes after 10 o'clock. It has been a pleasure. Join us again tomorrow when we'll be right back. Do take care.
We're different. We're 98.9. 98.9. Win FM.
If you live in low-lying areas, be aware of the possibility of tsunamis immediately after an earthquake. A strong earthquake